About a year ago, management was putting big nets over the trees
Yeah.
to keep the birds from nesting there.
And they get caught, it causes death to the birds because they get caught up in the nets. Yeah, I saw that too. Another thing that they're doing is pruning back the trees so much that they can't nest there, and those are the ones they were putting nets on.
And the egrets, we had a beautiful tree right at the end of Bora Bora for the egrets, they're not there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
They trimmed the tree so badly that there was no.
That's another trick they're doing. They're not cutting down the trees, they're just trimming the back so badly that it's devastating. Yeah.
I wonder if you have been able to do any outreach to fishermen's groups? And what I mentioned is, I know up north, my stepfather, who was a very avid angler, they would do education like this to apprise their members so that they could go out, reach out, and educate others.
Yeah. Here's a good point. Where I'm at with this project is I do contract work, so when I work, I don't have time to work on this. But in between contracts, I just work like crazy, work like mad. So I finally got the presentation together. I finally started taking it on the road. This is I think end of March was my first presentation. And so I've had like 4 or 5 other presentations. So what I'm doing right now is identifying stakeholders, identifying interested parties, identifying ideas that I need to come in. And then in July, I'm expecting to have a workshop, and I'll design it so that I can make sure that the conversations and the ideas that I'm hearing are designed into that agenda, so that we can figure out what's the first phase and what are the deliverables, how are we going to do them so we actually get traction. So don't lose that thought. I want to make sure that I write it down because I think that's a really good idea.
I was just wondering, it would take about 3 minutes if we turn this into a circle. Just everybody turn their chairs around and face each other. We'll get rid of the extra ones. And then Bev-Sue can just sit down with us and maybe, we can talk about this.
Nature services. Our Earth's biological and geochemical systems are the working parts of our ability to exist. We can't exist without them. And we're causing disruptions to this, which is literally cutting off the lifeline upon which our existence depends. And another salient point about why wetlands in particular are so important is they support a huge variety of life. They offer natural sponges for watershed, coastal flooding, groundwater supplies. A lot of you guys already know this stuff. They also support a huge variety of life by providing habitats, carbon storage, serve as refueling destinations. But one of the most stunning things are the pounds of plant growth per acre per day generated of all different kinds of habitats. A healthy wetland will generate 175 pounds of plant growth per acre per day. Grasslands, forest lakes, 90 pounds in comparison. Oceans, 15 pounds by comparison. And deserts, 10 pounds by comparison. So healthy wetlands are really important. And birds play a really vital role in contributing to the vitality and productivity of healthy wetlands.
Kanga Library would show this in a minute. And within these communities, there's so much of business, show business involved. CAA, the largest talent agency in the country, they have a whole department that reaches out to causes like this. They deal with children's causes, environmental causes. They've done a lot of work with Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene would show your program in just a second. But it's just a question of getting to these little circles of neighborhoods that, first of all, you never know who's listening. You never know who knows who. And particularly getting across that they are affected even though they don't live here. This was great. Really beautiful presentation.
And please, anybody, before you leave, if you want me to contact you, please let me know. And if you have ideas, I want to hear them.
Also, Bev-Sue, do you have a way of people giving you their contact information if they're interested in working on the program, or should I send this around for people to see?
I can send this around.
Okay. People want to help work on
Actually,
it.
yeah, while we just talk here, if you're interested. This doesn't oblige you. If you're interested in just following it, great. If you're interested in participating, even more.
There was a fish die-off last Monday in my own creek.
I heard that.
We took pictures and I haven't heard yet. Supposedly Fish and Wildlife and other biologists were trying to figure out what happened. The people that fish out there, again, I haven't been out much lately, but it seems like different ethnic groups. And I think they really do use it as food. Plus it's part of their culture, you know, historically where they came from, whether it's, you know, Vietnam or Latin America or somewhere, yeah, to go fish and, you know, sort of a social activity too. So that it's a little tricky there, you know.
President of LMU Center for Urban Resilience, and they do environmental stuff, but they also do community outreach, and he and I talked about that very thing, that it will have to be, and that's how the eco-education and the eco-habitat restoration, class or community service, will have to really be sensitive about that, because it'll be geared towards people that but they're not catching much right now, and it's poisonous. So, to me, that trumps culture. But we can also bring them in to help come up with solutions. Maybe we get them involved in fish breeding programs. I think they've got a sea bass fishing group. It took me a while to figure out how to put together the story of what I was saying. And I have given this to Fish and Wildlife. I will continue to. Beaches and Harbor. I'm just getting started in communicating this and finding out who's going to be involved in the solution. I think with Fish and Wildlife, the actual directive is going to come like 2 or 3 levels higher.
Regarding the great blue herons, the great egrets, and the snow egrets. Snowy egrets are wetland obligate birds. They're always near water. And when it rains and there's ponding in wetlands, you'll see the snowy egrets go in places where you never see them go because there's water there. The great blue herons and the great egrets, I've seen great blue herons and great egrets all the way up to Sepulveda on open fields. They're catching lizards and gophers, and so they're not all fish. They actually, I see in the El Segundo dunes, so they're not wetland obligate birds, so they have kind of a wider. So I'm making a case for uplands are important too, and so when you saw that great blue heron way over near the, it was probably up on the slopes catching lizards and stuff, and there could even be a sidebox lizard running into the sandy area where they. So the snow egrets are wetland obligate birds. They're always near wetlands, but the great egrets and they're eating fish, but they're also going upland on hillsides, and so they're not wetland obligate birds.
Yeah, and I've seen them flying over the Palisades,
Yeah.
like down here. As long as we have nesting places for them.
Just saying that this issue of wildlife destruction is a broad issue, worldwide issue. And of course, I mean, you have to focus on something and start somewhere. And you're doing a fantastic job.
Follow the whole migration path and find out what the conditions are the entire way. What I really want to do with this one is keep it really simple and have it used as a case study so that it can, maybe it ends up being a model that can be used for if you decide that you want to create the story and document what's happening in the rainforest, or wherever you decide to, the beginning, middle, and end of that story is, then maybe this can have some tools out as an outcome that can help you do that. I'm pretty adamant to keep it as small as possible because it's already hitting so many facets. Even if it's just an example of how the 6th mass extinction is happening, and they get that, and do something about it in wherever they are, I think that's really, really important right now to people, for people to realize how urgent it is that we do something. Respected bird watch. I didn't know that it was going to be calling. It just happened. It sucked me in and it's not letting me go. So
Have you got in touch with G2 Galleria?
that was the first presentation I gave.
That's how we got Bev-Sue. I went to the
Oh,
teacher
yeah, they were
gallery.
there,
Okay.
yeah.
How about Audubon?
I would love to, I would love to.
That would be natural.
Yeah, yeah.
Santa Monica Library.
I write down your ideas and I will follow up on them.
Santa Monica Audubon and LA Audubon are both involved in the marina.
When somebody new moves into one of the apartments or the condos, have a welcome wagon kind of packet that tells them all about the wildlife that's here and how wonderful it is. And yes, there's going to be some poop, but that's a good sign. You know, to kind of reframe how they're seeing it right now. And then work with the apartment management groups so that they get it. Yeah, so and I think that would be the most effective way to do it.
I've always believed that maybe if we'd listened to the Indians more and to the Pilgrims less, we would have a much better environment. And so the circle is kind of symbolic of the Indians and trying to look at this from a more, level point of view where we're kind of all teachers.
I work with one of the indigenous people here from the Tonga, people that have been living here for 10,000 years. And he told me that they had a whole different way of looking at nature. And they would if they took a fruit from the tree, they would thank the tree.
One of the things that Native Americans in Alaska do during the salmon runs, they will cordon off a small part of a river. Everything else is free for the salmon to run, and this little part will be for them, and no one else, not all the rest of us that come.
The Pilgrims.
Yeah, the Pilgrims. We can watch. They can do the farming, but because they respect the greater part, and there is something about that where perhaps the fishermen can have just that much.
And that would be really good. The management companies and the development companies, I would love to present this to them. So we've got to turn some minds and some hearts, but there's very clever ways we can do it. I believe.
I just have to say that the way you presented was really good, and it made me, I love birds too, but your hope about it, because it seems so that the way society is going, the way people are going, it's just the opposite. We don't think enough. I say I don't either, about what leaving some line around or a sinker or a hooker, and to change that consciousness is really a big job.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful that you have that mission.
There are these rehab groups that take injured wildlife.
It's not just the birds, it's the marine mammals, the birds, whatever happens to be.
We went through a whole bad period where the management was hiring people to poke sticks at the sea lions to get them off the
Organizations that are really strapped for resources and the mindset in a lot of the organizations. I'm in corporate America. When somebody works at a place, I do consulting work primarily. If you go outside the mindset that's in that organization, it's a risk to your job. It's like that in government work too. So you're not allowed to think outside the box because you'll be penalized. So how do we turn things around knowing that the people are kind of fearful, really, and they can't afford to listen? So how does that paradigm change? But
I think it could be a pilot study in other ways too. I know that Friends of Our Wetlands and the Bay Foundation have both gone to beaches and harbors and shown your presentation to them. And, they're interested in also working on this issue. So I think it could be something where enough of the community and groups come together and work on it and work with beaches and harbors. I invited them tonight, but I guess they don't understand it. But, so it could be a group thing.
And I've also been talking with the Technical Advisory Committee Bay to Santa Monica
Bay Restoration
Bay
Commission.
Restoration Committee. And I'm presenting it as, would you be interested in a case study? But I met the chair, Stephen May, and the other guy, Tom Ford, and gave him a card, briefly went through the presentation, very, very light, because I have it in a notebook also. And I said, you know, let me know, I'd be glad to stay in touch. I didn't think anything would come of it, but Steve handed my card to somebody who said, and he said, follow up with this person. The person did go through the presentation on my website and did contact me. It's like, great. I mean, there's so many different facets of this project. It's education, it's outreach, it's changing policies and laws and regulations, it's habitat restoration, it's but so, I don't want to make anybody, it's cultural,
You need kind of like a steering committee, a little committee of people interested in working on this.
Right, yeah. So, and I'm very adamant, I don't want to start another organization. There's so many people doing so many good things. Let's just partner and say, maybe you just want to do
Maybe next Tuesday.
This is our mission. This is what we like to do. So maybe that, maybe another group is this, maybe. And so I would, yeah. So that's kind of.
I just got an email from our daughter in Oregon, and she suggested that Waterkeeper has a situation where you don't have to form another organization. You can just sort of get on with them. There was an article, I believe, written about the Silicon Beach, and that a lot of people are missing the fact that these people moved here because they would have the marina and the outdoors. And so you might want to get in touch with Google and actually make a presentation to them.
You know what would be absolutely a dream come true for me would be partner with Google and with YouTube and have remote monitoring.
Wow.
So that as the birds migrate, people can have access and start learning about it without getting trampled in it.
Right.
And have like citizen scientists saying, oh, this is what's happening today, or you know, whatever. They have the resources to actually make that happen. They have the money to make that happen. I would love to do that.
The fireworks displays we have every year.
Oh.
And what happens to the nesting birds, because this is July is coming up, and then we have them all year round, people have private parties. Where does all this exploded material when it ends up in the water, it becomes part of the, I don't know if any of these, are there any groups trying to stop fireworks displays in these fragile ecosystems that we have?
Everybody wants to know, what can we do for Bionah wetland? I asked Margot Griswold, if maybe she would consider doing something at my home, to just having a party in August, you know, food and then Margot to talk. Does that sound like a good idea? I mean, I'd like, you know, for example, the Land Trust and everybody. Does that sound like a good idea? Would anybody be interested in August like that?
Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so anyway, I am working on those two things.
And July and August we take a break because we have a lot of events here and there's no parking most months. And then September we'll start again on the program, our programs. And if anybody has any ideas or suggestions for programs for September, October, November, let me know.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.